Hi guys. And girls, of course. And aliens, why not? Well, today I thought I would make a small video about an issue, a subject, or a matter that has come to my attention lately. And I'm doing this video after talking with with an American person, an American friend, I could say that. And it's about how the American people create myths and ideas and what we call conspiracy theories about the most simple things. Now, I saw this girl that was visiting. Sorry, my cat will enter in my room and I will have to close the door, okay? Because she owns me. Yeah. Now, as I was saying, how the Americans mystify and turn into create these myths, these conspiracy theories about the most simple of things. And as I was saying, I saw a girl that was visiting uh, an kind of a how would you call it in English? You know, a place to see the stars and nature and whatever in Iceland. And then she was talking about the that this was all a temple or something dedicated to Polaris, and that when they was speaking about protecting the polar bears, it was about Polaris. And then she went on the diatribe that ended up talking about pyramids and God and Satan and whatever. And I just, what are you doing? It's a place, it's a dome to, and oh, and she said it was the dome was like the Dome of the Rock. Okay. Do you know how long the dome-like structure has been around? It's pre-Roman, before Rome. Of course, there were some dome-like structures before, but the first time they were officially, let's call it like this, or officially uh, uh, created in the way and the shape we know them now, it was in before ancient Rome. It was the Etruscan people that were pre-Roman people that in fact dominated the Romans before they were even a thing, when they were just another tribe that entered in Italy and installed themselves there. Okay, and the Etruscans had a high culture. To this day, we don't really know what their origins are, but most scholars, after analyzing it all, they all think that it was a local people. You know, the fact that the Romans, for example, proud themselves of being descendant of Greeks and not of Etruscans, it has to do with an ingrained reaction to a superior nation that dominated them. Simple as that, you know? Because the Etruscans, in fact, they dominated the Romans. The Etruscans, in fact, turned Rome from a settlement of now semi-nomadic people, barbarian people, into an actual state, into an actual city. And Rome had Etruscan kings and whatever. This is just for you to understand. But she was talking about how it looked like the Dome of the Rock. Does she uh, thinks or imagines that the fact of something being dome shaped has to do with the Dome of the Rock, with, I don't know, Islam or Christianity or Judaism or any of those Abrahamic religions? You see, creating myths, creating myths out of something that is, for example, a dome. And why was the Dome of the Rock created? And I'm not talking about the religious significance, you know? No, I'm not talking about that. Not at all. Okay? Not going into that rabbit hole. And Frankly, I really don't care. I like architecture. Sorry, not the first time, not an English speaker. Okay, and the dome was popularized by Rome, and Rome dominated the entire Mediterranean basin. It dominated a significant part of Africa, of the Middle East, and of Europe. Okay, and the dome was everywhere. Right here in Portugal, you go to, for example, you go to a typical ancient city here, and you will find, first of all, you will find Neolithical populations. Okay, sorry, the cat. Now she's sitting in my hands. Okay, got my crazy little one. Um, you will find the Neolithical population. Then you will find the Celtic settlements. Then you will find the mixture between the Celtic and the Roman or Latin settlements. Okay, and then you will find medieval. You will find medieval, in which I include Germanic and sometimes Muslim construction. Muslim subset. The Muslims dominated the peninsula for briefly, but they were never even. I don't know. Not even 5% of the population. They were even less of that, according to some scholars. But that is not important. I'm talking about architecture and not anything else. And then they arrived here and in elsewhere in the Roman world, and they saw the dome used for everything. It was used for public buildings. It was used for religious buildings. It was used for absolutely every aspect of society because it was ingrained in it. We owned, we owe, sorry, those Muslim invaders, so to call them, for the cat again. We owe those the most Muslim people because they preserved much of Europe's architecture, history, philosophy, medicine, so much so that during the Renaissance period, after that, most of Europe was able to pick up on what the Romans and the Greeks had done in order to evolve. Unfortunately, most of the Muslim world fell into a kind of a medieval status that, and this is my opinion, I hope no one is offended by it, but it's my opinion. But the Muslim world after that, it fell into a slow medieval period. They are still in a medieval period. They are still confusing religion, and they are unable to separate religion from society. It's still happening for different reasons, but it's still happening. But I have faith that that will change, that they will be able to separate things. I see some countries that are already able to do that, to separate religion that is a personal belief, that is a moral compass, to separate that from trying to impose a semi religious state like we still have. The Americans, for example, most of them are Christians, and they are clearly also in the same state of ideas. They are still in that idea of confusing religion with politics, with art, with everything, you know. But that is for another video I will make, or probably even a stream to speak about those things. But let's carry on. So the dome was all over the Muslim world, and wherever Muslims went, they did not only take their ideas, their specific ideas, their specific construction techniques, whatever. They also took the Roman and the Greek ones. Okay, so before that girl spoke about that in such a convict way, she should have known that no, Iceland, they are European, they brought European techniques. They have been a part of the European world forever. So it is natural they will use, for example, construction techniques made by Europeans or used by Europeans. This is the best way to see it. Because to say made, that is a very fluid concept, okay? And going back to the beginning of my rant, what I find odd is this mystification of things, of taking things that are perfectly explainable, that are perfectly analyzed, and turn them into something else. The entire disbelief on the moon landing, when the entire world, even the Soviets, monitored it and knew it happened, and they are turning this into, oh no, it was a farce. Yeah, it was all made in Hollywood. They staged it. They staged it. This is one example. And then I start to think, why do people do this? Because being ignorant cannot be the only explanation for it. There has to be something behind it. There has to be some kind of a wider spectrum of facts, of occurrences that causes this. And what I find is this. First of all, the Americans have something that I, in fact, don't dislike, which is a very ingrained conviction that their opinion matters. And in a smaller in a smaller way, that is good, because that way you do what I do, for example, and you do not let other people influence your moral compass. I have my morals, I have my ethics, and as long as I do not impose impose those my ideas as an absolute concept, that is very correct. Let me just close the door again. That is very correct, because this means that you will not. Oh, Gesundheit. Santinho in Portuguese. But that means that you will not let yourself influence by every odd idea that appears in your life. And that is very good. No, it's good to have a strong personality. It's good to have a personality that is able to change if needed, but that also refuses to turn into whatever other people tell you to do. In society, we have to, of course, obey certain ideas, certain moralities. And for example, in most of Europe, is the compass is this: my freedom ends where the other person's freedom begins. It's not absolute free speech; it's free speech, which is a different thing. Because in an absolutist free speech society, you are free to insult other people, and you can do things like I see in America. There's, for example, people marching about with swastikas in their flags and calling names to other races and do whatever they want to do. They are interfering with other people's freedom. But, and this is important, and I want you to understand this. When I, for example, say something like this, when I make a video or I crack a joke about a gay person or about a transgender person, or about even another race of people, if I'm not being, for example, if I'm making a joke, if it has a context, or if I'm speaking the words and it has a context, I am not offending them either. And if a person of or whatever group starts trying to hinder my ability, pardon me, to make that joke, okay, or to do whatever I do in that context, then in that case, They are doing the same thing. They are imposing their absolute free speech on me. And that is not correct either. And what do political forces do, both in the right and in the left? They politicize these events. They politicize, for example, not being able to make those camp jokes about women, about sex, about men pursuing women. Those types of old time jokes, or for example, a simple word that a person might say, and they don't. Oh, look at them. He's a fascist. Yes, he's offending women. He doesn't respect women. He doesn't respect minorities. No, stop. It's just like you, for example, and I have seen this my entire life. I'm a metal fan, always have been. Right now you can see it, but up until my 30s when I had a blood issue and I lost a lot of my hair. I had hair, straight reddish hair going back into going almost up to my almost to my ass. Okay, and I had it long. I don't know, since I was about 16 or something like that. But going back to metal music has a lot of satanic, pagan, violent themes. Does that mean those people are violent? Well, some of them might be. Does that mean some of those people are satanic? Well, some of them might be. Whatever you mean by Satanism. Okay? But aren't most of those people simply artists? Yes. Even when they are living that part and giving interviews and whatever, yes, they are artists. It's art. When you don't like a book or you don't like to listen to a music or an artist, to be more clear, you don't burn the book or offend the artist. You simply close the book, turn on your turn out your stereo or wherever you are listening to the music, and you move on. Why? Because it is your free speech to not read that book or listen to that music or that artist, and it's their free speech of the artist to write the book and to compose the music and to perform it and to perform the artist's role in all of that. And people in the US, they don't understand this. I have heard the weirdest theories, the theories of conspiracy theories and whatever, about these things. And it really baffles me, man. It really baffles me. Because let me tell you this. Are there odd, even illegal parties and interactions and whatever in in the artist world? Well, of course there are. But there are also things that are perfectly normal. You might consider them not ethically correct, but that is your perception. As long as there is no criminal charges, like the ones we've been seeing of people that were harming children, that were trafficking children, harming women, harming men, doing whatever they do, or blackmailing people for sexual favors to progress in their artistic career. No, that is very normal. But let me tell you this: you are a beautiful actress, and you really want to get that role in that movie, and you seduce one of the persons that is deciding who will be the cast in that movie. Now, who is the criminal here? Who is doing the unethical thing? Is it the person that is doing the movie that takes advantage of that beautiful actress? Or is it that beautiful actress that uses her charms, even sexual favors, to get the role? Okay? This is something that you really have to consider. Okay? This is something you really have to consider. You have to consider this perspective. Now, if, for example, that same person that is responsible for getting the cast for the movie does something like, for example, look at that beautiful actress and tells her, look, either you do me a favor or I won't get you in the movies. And that actress, willing, unwilling, unwillingly degrades herself to give that favor, let's call it like this, then right there, it's a crime. No doubts about it. Because that person is using their position of power to coerce other people to provide them with whatever fancies him or her, because we have this tendency to consider only men as the offenders. But if it's true that a majority of them are men, women do the same thing. Even in my work life, I have seen it happen. I won't talk more about it, but I've seen it happen. Okay, but and all of these theories that the Americans create in their conspiracy ideas of right now some archaeologists discovered structures under the pyramid, they say. As far as I know, and from what I saw from normal news, what they discovered were more structures that were related with the pyramids, meaning it's natural because the pyramids, you have to understand this. Like I told you about the cities in Portugal, you know that it begins with the Neolithical people, then the Celtics, then the Romans, then even the Islamic and the Germanic, and afterwards the medieval and the modern. This is how the pyramids were done, and we are talking about a society, the Egyptian society, that has been around for thousands of years. It all began when the first populations of humans discovered the Nile Vale, the Nile Valley, the Nile River, and all the life that was there. Wild animals, you know, forest. There was forest there, you know, and then all of that life, and then they decided to settle there, and then they developed agriculture, and then the seasons and the flooding of the Nile forced them to learn how to deal with it, how to count time, how to do a series of things. Same thing in Babylon and in the Fertile Crescent area. You know that entire area that today is more or less Iraq and parts of Syria and even of Iran too. You know, it was a slow development. So you are going to find related structures or buried structures near the pyramids because they didn't just pop in. You understand this? And they were built with a purpose. And we know the purpose because the Egyptians themselves let it written. They, 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 they had records. They had a written language, and it's in the monuments themselves. It's in papyrus. It's in the reports and the history of other nations that were drawn to them or that wrote about them, like the Greeks, for example. So we know it, and yet I see this video of a guy and more than one guy, and then other guys start using the same AI generated or whatever thing he was doing to allege the same thing that there is, I don't know, large structures beneath the pyramids, and it's I don't know, an energy factory or manufacturer, whatever the F they are talking about. They're completely mad. You understand this? And they create this entire narrative out of such a simple thing. And that is one of the things that baffles me about the Americans. Not to say this does not happen in other parts of the world, it happens. But the way it's perceived by society at large is completely different than the way it's perceived in the US. You perceive it as a truth, as an absolute truth. And I think that that idea goes back to your idea of absolute free speech and of the entire sovereign citizen idea, you know, or the Trump supporters that now support that one of the branches of the government, the executive branch, is thwarting and not obeying the judicial branch. And then you consider that is normal when your constitution, your state organization itself, states that there is a separation of power, that the president cannot do whatever he wants, that the judicial system, in their attributions, cannot do whatever they want, and there are rules and protocols and division of power, and that is meant to not let the country fall into an authoritarian system where, for example, like in Russia, the executive branch, the president, does whatever he wants, and all other branches are just assisting him. Look, and would that work? No. Why? Because no matter how competent and magnanimous and thinking about your your people's uh, behalf in behalf of them, protecting them, whatever, it will always be a dictatorship. And it is not a complete one right now, but it can easily turn into this. And instead of seeing this being nullified, what we are seeing is that this same mythological way of thinking is simply is simply destroying the free speech that you try to defend. By using absolute free speech, you are destroying free speech. Because it's a very different thing. I'm going back to this example because it's very important. It's a very different thing from a person saying that he or her are fascist, that they believe one race is superior to another. They can say that, they can think that. But would you enter in a room full of people of other races and start blurping that out and expect not to be mocked, even attacked, and then claim that you are being persecuted? You understand? You wouldn't do that. You would be able to think that, you will be able to speak it, even write a book about it, but you cannot expect other people to not react. And this is the important part that everyone keeps forgetting, and that is used by the extremist groups in the right and in the left. Those black people that are offended by your book, if you are not looking at them and mocking them and speaking your theories of racism or whatever, they also have no right in telling you that you cannot have those ideas and you cannot write those books. Do you understand this? This is free speech. Because if it's not against the law, if a person can have free ideas and freedom of speech, only when it's against the law. Only like things, for example, no one can agree that it's normal to have sex with children, that it's ridiculous, or raping people, or killing people, or stealing people. That will always be against the law. Always. And I don't care about those absolutists of free speech and free ideas when they come up with this nonsense, this discussing. It's against human nature. And when it's against human nature, it has to be written in the law because some people are too stupid to understand that they cannot do that shit. I despise those people. And this is where that hatred is well directioned. You should be hateful against people that promote violence, that promote harm to others. So those idiots with their swastika flags, they deserve to be kicked because they can rent a place, go inside that place, and speak all they want. Okay? And no one has the right to tell them not to do it. They have the right to be indifferent or to be assholes. Everyone has a right to be an asshole. I personally am not a far right, far wing, or whatever you want to call it, or but a fascist. I dislike that. My idea is free thinking. Okay, the personal freedom of a person to live his or her life however they want to live it. But I have friends that are far left and far right. And how do I keep these friendships alive? In a very simple way. We are free to speak about whatever we want and we respect our opinions. But we are still friends because we respect our opinions. That is what is called to live with other people, to live in a society, to not live in a bubble. And this is a fundamental idea and a fundamental principle that makes Americans so different from other cultures. Like the Europeans, most of us, we also have our idiots, as you can see. No, Brexit was the idiots winning over common sense. No. People like Orban in Hungary, they are the proof that there are people that are unable to live with free speech. And I am not saying, look, going back now, let's talk about Hungary, because just to make a point here, you cannot ban manifestations of trans and gay people, but you can claim, for example, do this. If you want to promote a law that bans their festivals or whatever they do, I don't know. No, not even the. I don't know many gay people, but I have a gay friend, and when we talk about it, he doesn't like it. He's the type of guy that you wouldn't know he's gay. He likes to have a beer, to go to the football matches with us, whatever. When we go, but I haven't gone to one in many years. No, but we meet up in the coffee shop. We have a coffee. We talk or whatever. We sometimes we talk online, whatever. And he doesn't like it, and that is his freedom. Does that change the fact of he is who he is? No. He knows I'm straight. He knows I don't like that those type of shit. So we don't talk about it. We don't care. This is the main point. We don't care. But if you wanted, from for example, you want to ban the parades in Budapest, and you do something very simple. You hold a poll with the inhabitants of that city and tell them, look, by whatever reasons we consider this is wrong and we don't want it here. and then you put it up to the poll, and people vote, and then whatever people decide, it's what you will do. If they say yes, let's ban it, you ban it. You allow it, for example, to happen inside, I don't know, a stadium or whatever you want, a closed space, and you ban it. If people say no, let them do their party, let them do whatever they want, you allow it. And this is democracy. And this is a simple idea that could solve a lot of our problems. And yet, like the Americans, some of us are falling into this rabbit hole. And this rabbit hole leads nowhere. It leads to confusion, it leads to trouble, it leads to social unrest, it leads to civil unrest, and it can lead to wars. There are many wars in the world right now, and the reason for those wars are usually two: either intolerance or the will to possess and to make a profit. Simple as that. Look at the war in Ukraine. It has two reasons. It has the intolerance and political views of someone, and his ambition of conquering more territories, more people, and to, uh, let's say, reinforce his position to recreate some kind of Soviet wet dream or Russian Empire wet dream. And all of these people, all of these Americans with their conspiracy theories, and all of these extremists within the left and the right, they are living in the past. They are unable to understand the world changes. They are unable to understand that we are not a static species, that we evolve constantly. Even the fact that humans have different races or different ethnic groups is a proof that we are a species that is able to change and to adapt. And instead of pursuing that, what I see is that we are always going from a period in which we are evolving continuously, and then when we reach a certain stage, we have a medieval period in whatever form, shape or form it happens. We go back into the confusion, and then we start again. And today, in nowadays, we have reached a point where if we fall back into a medieval stage, we might have burned the world so much that we maybe won't be able to survive as a species. When people talk about global changes in the environment and whatever, I just tell them this. We won't be around when the actual changes happen because we will probably have killed ourselves off because we are not evolving, all of us. And I'm not just saying the US. I'm saying the US, I'm saying Europe, I'm saying China, I'm saying Asia, I'm saying everyone. Everyone is static. Everyone is not evolving. No one is sitting down and discussing things. No one is sitting down and actually finding solutions. All we have is lunatics in the East, lunatics now in the West, and we are stuck here in the middle. And Europe is still the place, Europe and China are still the places in Asia. Around in these areas, we still have a bit of common sense with different political ideas, with different agendas, whatever, but we are still able to stop this. And I'm honest with you. I have no hope for the United States because even if the political ideas right now are corrected in some form or another, this underlying conspiracy urge to create mythos and to create ideas that are not logical. You, how can you believe, for example, in a saying like a flat earth? How? How are you able to believe in that? There are no proofs. There are no this. For God's sake, shut up. Of course there are proofs. Of course there are ideas. I even heard a guy that said that, uh, look, and this one is one of the weirdest I heard. No, the moon landing was staged. It was all AI because in those days, the USA already had AI technology that they have gotten from the aliens in Roswell that are superior arcane beings. What the hell can you say to a person that believes in such a thing? Either than you need a doctor. My mother remembers the moon landing. She was alive by then. My grandfather, that was born in 1917, he remembers it. My grandfather is dead, by the way, long time. But when I was a kid, he talked about it. The Soviet Union monitored the moon landing. They know it happened. Europe monitored the moon landing. They know it happened. They brought back samples from the moon. Was the speech rehearsed of that one or one step for man, one large leap for mankind? Was the person that was uh, assigned with the role, an Armstrong, to be the first human to step in the moon? Was it decided politically? Of course it was. Was the moon landing a political effort also? Yes, of course it was, because the Russians had put a man in space. By the way, if you had any doubts that the bloody Earth was round, then Yuri Gagarin proved it. He proved it. Were there before them a lot of failures, a lot of dead astronauts, a lot of dead people, a lot of disasters that we do not know about? Yes, there were. Of course, there were. When the Portuguese were exploring the seas, you know, there were a lot of sunk ships and a lot of dead people that were that they never talked about with the people here. Why? Because we needed because the ship sinks, we learn about it, we build better ships. Practical result, we went around the world with Magellan. And we also proved that the earth is round. He did not hit any kind of land barrier, whatever they call it. I think they believe that the Earth is either flat as a pancake, or it's a static land, whatever you want to call it, and that it's surrounded by ice mountains, and that beyond those mountains there are other worlds. Look, I love science fiction. I love fantasy books also. I like Tolkien, for example. I like Ray Bradbury. I like it. It's interesting, it's exciting, it's pleasant to read those things. But I do not consider them the truth. What? You believe there are hobbits in England? Well, there might be some small furry persons. There are some everywhere. But I don't believe that Gandalf is living in a hill with Frodo. So I have to conclude this stream. I have some other stuff to do. This video. I have some other stuff to do, but I'm going to publish this one. I will only want to ask you this. Do not let yourself fall. Do not let yourself to be allowed to fall into these rabbit holes. If someone is talking this shit, you either ignore them completely, okay, or you, for example, contradict them continuously. If that girl was talking with me about the DOMs, I would tell you. I would tell her, look, are you stupid? There are thousands of DOMs in my heart, in my country. Are we all Polaris worshippers or whatever? And polar bears are animals. They are bears that migrated to the north and adapted to the environment of the place they were. For example, they are white, so they can confuse themselves with snowy lands and hunt more efficiently. Just like brown bears and black bears are darker, so they can merge with the vegetation in the south. Just like people lose melanin in order because there is no need to have so much melanin and to be able to support colder weathers. And they get dark in the equator because they need to support the heat better. So they get bigger noses and stuff like that so they can breathe properly. And they get smaller noses and smaller nostrils in the north so they can filter the air more efficiently and they can warm up the air before you breathe it in. Science, logic. Logic is the only thing that will save us in the end. Only if we are absolutely logic and cast aside our emotions will we progress. We only need our emotions for the reason why our own genetical build gave them to us. Genetics gave us the ability to be innovative, to have imagination, to have empathy for people. Empathy is to create bonds amongst people and to protect the group and allow the group to exist and to flourish. Imagination is to allow us to discover new ways of solving problems. I know it's hard to hear this, but we are basically gregarious creatures that have developed certain traits in order to preserve ourselves as a species. And if you believe in a God, there is nothing wrong with it. Who knows? You want to ask me my personal perspective? I believe there is a God. Not perhaps in the same way that you believe in it, in him or her or it, I don't know, but in the sense that you can feel something in the background, something existing, something moving, something sometimes intervene. But perhaps what I'm going into something that we would be hours here discussing. But just to say that there is nothing wrong with that. There is nothing wrong with praying. There's nothing wrong if you're an atheist. There's nothing wrong with that. What you have to keep to yourself is this: whenever you think about something, you follow logic. You don't follow faith. If a girl is talking with you about the domes, you grab a history book and say, "Look, see here in Europe, the Etruscans invented the dome. Invented, developed the dome. Then the Romans developed it further. And then they expanded the building of domes all over the Mediterranean basin. Then the Muslims got the technology to build domes, and then they built the Dome of the Rock. And polar bears, look, polar bears are bears that migrated up north and that turned white and developed other traits because they needed to do so to survive their environment. There is no magic here. There is only logic. And to me, this is the proper way to ask. Either you are indifferent and you ignore because some people don't want to listen to logic, or you fight back with logic. You don't feed trolls, you drown them in facts. And that is what, please, follow logic and not conspiracy theories. All right? I hope you've enjoyed this. I'm sorry, I know I sometimes do rant a lot, but I simply like to talk about these things. And I would ask anyone that is listening to me to please fact check everything I say. Fact check me because I also get things wrong sometimes. It's natural and it's human. And like I was saying, follow logic, not emotions. Emotions lie to you. Logic never lies to you.